Videotaping your babysitter. Should you do it? It's here to answer the questions for us today is James Copenhaver. Thank you, James, for coming with us.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. And you are a private investigator, so this is what you do.
Every day.
Yes. So, many questions we have because, I have kids and I've never left them with a nanny that wasn't related. I've never really had that issue. But for a lot of parents, that may not necessarily be an option.
You're right. I mean, just watching the recent Casey Anthony jury selection, they're having an issue with single moms and et cetera having babysitters or getting babysitters. So, yeah, we experience a lot of calls from single moms looking for background checks and et cetera.
Really?
Yes.
Now, you mentioned this Casey
Anthony.
case, Anthony. Just for background, just explain to our viewers what that case is all about, real quick.
That case is a 3-year-old case. Casey, as most people know, her daughter was Kaylee, turned up missing for in excess of 60 days before she was reported missing and was later found dead.
Okay.
And they obviously arrested and suspect the mother in that crime.
Foul play.
Yes.
Now, Erica mentions the use of cameras in monitoring a babysitter or a nanny. My question is, why use a camera to monitor a nanny or babysitter? Why even get to that point? Shouldn't there be a trust factor way before you hire the person and you bring them on into your home and even to look after your child?
Absolutely. That's a good question and a good point. We all should be satisfied and know who's watching our children when we're not there, but unfortunately we see it in the news every day where they trusted and knew the person, but it was a known person that committed the crime or act or whatever the case may be.
Right. And actually, you can go ahead and finish.
No, please go ahead.
As I was doing the statistics and everything, it seems to be most of the crimes committed against children are relatives. They're their own family members.
Exactly.
So why are we so quick to turn to nannies? I think it's a cultural issue, no?
Actually, if it's done properly, I know that we have a system set up with several daycares in the Orlando area where we do a pre-employee screening, and obviously all the background stuff that would go along with that, and do the best we can to either prove or disprove a fit nanny. And I think when a parent is paying for that service, they're a little bit more confident. And we're actually exposed to some legal issues if our investigation turns out to be wrong and something would happen. So, it's a 10-step program that we go through verifying.
So does having a nanny camera give the parent the complete, peace of mind?
I believe so. Under the right. If it's set up properly and the cameras are stealth and covert, at 90% success rate in terms of it working properly.
I think James, I think I'm coming back from, we had a show where we had it was self-defense, and we had an instructor on our couch talk about some techniques. Right. And one of the things that we learned was even before you get to the assault or to the physical assault is you trust your instinct, you avoid and watch your surroundings. And I just go back to that point with babysitting is shouldn't you have that trust going on? Shouldn't you do your background research before you put cameras, because cameras really, what can they tell you? I mean, what can they do for you?
Well, number one, cameras are intrusive in your home.
Yes.
And the cameras that we're installing for nanny cams, it's a good question because it's a 50-50 on do you tell the potential nanny, hey, the house is, it's equipped with cameras. It's a pro and con. I mean, but if it's wired properly, we do them in the ceiling with fire sprinklers, and there are cameras inside those. And I like to tell the potential nanny or the nanny, hey, the entire house is being recorded. And it's a shame that you have to go to those extremes, but it protects the child.
I guess it would be better, it's more proactive instead of retroactive, because who wants to come home and have the baby have an issue and then you say, oh, look, I see it here on camera, but you didn't prevent it.
Exactly.
Wow.
Oh, so you say it's better to tell the nanny before you...
I like to, yes. And we have a form that we'll have the nanny sign during our process, and it acknowledges that the house is being recorded with both video and sound.
Oh, wow.
So I'm holding one of these. It's a teddy bear that I'm holding. And then we have this here on the table that you brought in. So these are the different places that you would place a camera in the event that you want to use a camera to monitor your babysitter? Absolutely.
And these are just 2 items of literally thousands that you could install a covert camera in. This is a clock. And it's virtually undetected, and it runs on an SD card. So it's about 1,000 hours it would hold of recordings.
Okay. Now, one for me, I'm not a parent yet, but I would I would think that one of the ways of deterring any potential harm to my child would be to obviously hire a nanny or a babysitter, but to pop in unannounced, or to get a neighbor or a relative to pop in unannounced. Because like you said, I think cameras are very invasive. Now, what are the costs of installing cameras in a home for any parents out there that may be interested in doing so?
We will do the install, and it's, depending on the system. We just did an install last month. It was about $800, but it came with 9 different cameras and a DVR. So it's, something like this, you can pick this up for about $115.
Okay.
And so it's, from the low end all the way up to how high you want the technology.
Okay.
So James, can you give us like a little insight, the difference between using spyware and private investigation, the pros and cons of each, if you can?
Pros and cons on spyware. Some of it's illegal, and it's actually a felony. Going back a few months ago, the husband hacked into his wife's email and intercepted a bunch of emails, and he was actually arrested and charged. Whether I agree or disagree with that, it's a felony in most states to use spyware. As a matter of fact, our firm just worked with one of our female operatives in Miami. The client had spyware set up on her cell phone. It was actually legal in New York for him to do that, but it's illegal in Florida. Myself personally, just being in the industry and done this for the past 25 years, I like the human intelligence part. Going back to 101 police work or gumshoe work of having an agent out following someone with a video camera.
So you prefer the private investigation way? That's the better route.
It's more safe in terms of possibly one of us committing a crime without our knowledge if the husband has spyware hooked up.
Now, but the challenge though here is, so you have a husband, you have adults. Here we're talking about children and the harm to children. I mean, my concern is, videotaping a child being harmed or being assaulted. I mean, does that really make sense at the end of the day? Or in the case that you brought up with Casey, where she goes missing and the child is dead, and how sad is that?
I really believe that you need to take every measure to protect your child or our children today. And if it's, it's intrusive, yes it is, but I still think if you run a nanny program, you need to do a complete background check to find out who this nanny person is, get references, and for goodness sakes, I mean, go to every extreme. And if it takes a video camera and setting it up for a week or two just to monitor how she's relating or he's relating to your child, I think it's priceless. And I think it's something we almost have to do to protect our kids.
Now, how important is it for these devices in the home if something were to happen? Now you need to prove your case to who? Police? Or like, how important is saying, okay, I've got it on tape? Is that really necessary as evidence to prove my case?
Well, I just my opinion, it certainly furthers your case because it's the video doesn't lie.
Right.
It's a permanent record as to what you've recorded and what the camera has caught, and it serves as your eyes. So, it's very hard to go in court as an opposing or a defense counsel to defend that person whether or not the tape was authentic.
Okay.
And it's really the best evidence.
Okay. Okay. Now, I mean, obviously, you have to get on camera. They consent and their approval, right? That they're being taped or not.
Yes and no. Okay. If it's something you're laying out in a contract for your potential nanny, and you're going to advise them that the house is being recorded, then you would do a consent form. In the state of Florida, I'm not an attorney, and I'm not giving legal advice, but in our state, it is legal and permissible to video in the common areas, but not audio.
Without notification to
Correct.
the person who's being videotaped?
Yes.
Interesting. I didn't know
correct.
that. Okay.
Right, and I think they say, as you say, common areas, but you can put in the bedroom as long as if the services are going to be in the bedroom, per se, or?
Yes, anywhere the child would have access to or the child would be, that's where you'd want to set up your tapes.
Right, okay.
Now, as far as some of the laws, and I know Erica had talked about it a little, some laws prohibiting. Why are they? Because I see the wisdom in that. It's an invasion of privacy. Why do you think that they're prohibiting that? And then what can parents do outside of cameras to monitor the nannies or babysitters?
Other than a really good check and balance program, going back to the background checks and the full steps of the employee hiring process, a neighbor, certainly notify your neighbors that, hey, we have a nanny that's on board with us, and maybe get a neighbor to check in on the nanny a couple times a day until you see how it's going.
But
at least you'll have a peace of mind.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I get that. You can have a peace of mind, having the camera, but if you're constantly worrying to send people to, Because, you know, putting the camera is like, okay, fine, you know, I just want to have a peace of mind. I'll catch you in the act,
Right.
or whatever. But like Farai was saying, again, you know, I think there is a love-hate thing there, because you'd love to have the camera, but again, to see your child being abused and have it videotaped, I mean, what's your take on that?
Well, my take on that is it's only going to occur once. Unfortunately, God forbid that would happen. Once you collect that on tape, I mean, that's going to go straight to the authorities, I would hope, as a parent.
Right.
Right.
And at least document that this happened. And then it'll snowball after that.
That's a good way to put it. It will only happen once.
Yeah, it's only going to happen one time.
Right.
Right.
You check on the
mean,
tapes, right.
Yeah. Now, what are some of the outrageous stories or cases that you've handled as far as babysitting is concerned, or child's nanny in your profession as a private investigator?
Recently, within the last 2 years, and I can speak about the case without names, it's closed, but we had a case of the husband was not sure as to what the wife was doing with a 3-year-old child at home. She was exhibiting some bizarre behaviors. He wanted an entire system set up in his home, whereupon we did that. Oddly enough, he had control of the DVR because it was in the bedroom and etc. There were no voice on it, so he controlled that. I didn't want to see what was happening, obviously, behind closed doors in the bedroom. But it was very bizarre. I was able to see some of the tape in court, and she would literally get up at 7 or 8 in the morning after he left for work, put the child in the stroller, and literally march backwards and forwards down the hallway. It was just a very bizarre case. As it turned out, she had some issues whereupon she was possibly abused as a child, and she was literally, in her mind, protecting that kid by strolling the kid all day.
So she wasn't abusing her own child?
It wasn't really abuse, but it was certainly bizarre enough that it captured the attention of my client.
Okay.
And what happened was he came home from work early, and saw her in going backwards and forwards in the window. And it was literally, she was on patrol with this child.
Okay.
It was just bizarre.
Right.
But she never did anything to harm the child.
Really,
not
truly, no
physically,
physical
no.
abuse,
Right.
but that's pretty bizarre, and it could have led to other things if not captured.
Got it.
Right.
That's weird.
Yes, that's
Right. Well,
weird.
things happen, and I guess, you know, it's always good for us to know what's happening, especially when we're not there. So nanny cams, babysitting cams, whatever you want to call them, I think they're a necessary evil. You know, I would like to know if anything was going on in my household and I could not be there. So thank you, James, for sharing
Thank
that
you.
insight.
Thank you.
And now you know, do you need a nanny cam? Hopefully not, but get it together. James can help you out. Stay tuned.